Oh man, I'm still like I almost said softball. Man, welcome to the volleyball show, guys. It's the second one this season. We are a member of the Big Sky Podcast Network, and I am your host, Colby Peterson. On the show today, we have our returning champion, Elena Clory. How are you doing, man? How was last week for you?
I'm doing so great. I mean, coming out of a weekend, 3 wins, being able to watch the girls in person at the Swenson,
Ah,
great experience, great start of the season. Happy to be
yeah,
back.
I'm jealous. It was a good weekend at Club Swenson, and so I had to watch it all from my couch in Tennessee here. But man, it was great, and it was great to finally get some Weber State volleyball back and see the team kind of how it played out. So we'll talk all about that in the second segment. But let's get to what's on the show tonight. So first up for you folks, we're gonna have a player interview. We had a freshman win Defensive Player of the Week, and so we thought, what a perfect interview. So let's get Saane Katoa on the show to talk a little bit about her first week as a Weber State Wildcat playing against some D1 teams. So we have Saane Katoa here, the middle blocker, talk to us about that. Then after that interview, we'll talk a little bit about the weekend, analyze a few of the games. There were three, one against UC Riverside, the Highlanders. Then hated rival, SUU, got the dub against those guys. Always love that. And then finally, the nail biter. I'd call it a nail biter. I mean, it ended up going 3-1, but man, that San Jose State match was it was something. There was a lot of energy in there, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we get into all of it, want to encourage everybody to subscribe to the show, whether that's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. You can also find it on YouTube. All good places to find Weber State Weekly. We also are on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Twitter, one of the best places to interact with us, especially on game day. If you were on Twitter this weekend, you noticed that we were live tweeting, I think, two of the games. I did SUU and I did the San Jose State. Sorry, guys, I didn't live tweet the UC Riverside game. I had to work. My bad.
That's okay. Same here. I mean,
Yeah.
the game at 12:30 was really hard to
I was
balance my lunch break there.
But yeah, like no live tweeting. But all good places to interact with the Weber State Weekly team. And then, of course, the Patreon. You go to patreon.com/Weber State Weekly. Support the work that we're trying to do. Hopefully grow the team, grow the content. Please become a patron and a supporter of Weber State Weekly. So, all right, all done with the intro stuff. Now we want to talk to Saane Katoa. Saane, how have you been? It's been your first week as a Weber State Wildcat, like we said, playing in the Swenson. Hopefully that was a good welcome for you. A lot of good opportunities there at the Wildcat Invitational. And so, how would you rate your first week as a Weber State Wildcat?
I think it was good. I really enjoyed it. It was a good first week. I mean, we had a lot of games going, and it might have started out rough on some of them, but we kind of found our way, and we're continuing to find our way as a team. But I think overall, it's been good for sure.
Yeah, that's one thing that I would say about this team early. Of course, there's been a lot of hay made about the fact that, there was a certain group of seniors that have now moved on. We weren't sure what to expect. It's a very young team this year. And so we were very excited to kind of see how things were going to work out. And like you said, there were some rough starts in some matches. But I got to say, like, you guys are already living the team motto and hashtag this season, which is hashtag resilient. Impressive wins. I mean, we'll talk about it, but that San Jose State, that third set, man, that was some grit to come back from that one. So we'll get to a little bit about that, but just want to sort of like preface that by saying already some gritty wins for this young season. So glad to watch it.
Yeah, for sure. It was fun.
So Saane, kind of like, let's start from the beginning. I mean, you are now a freshman, like we said, just very early in your college career. Came from Woods Cross High. I just if you drive I-15, you see Woods Cross High all the time going to Salt Lake. And so, talk to us a little bit about your journey, because one thing that I noted this weekend was you're super athletic. I mean, you were playing middle this weekend, and every time that you got set, you sent it, and like it found the floor. Like they knew that they had to come over and block that, and if they didn't, like it was going down. Like you sent it always with authority, and so you probably could have played a number of different sports. You're super athletic. Tell us about why'd you choose volleyball as the one that you really wanted to lead with.
For sure. So it may sound funny, but in the very, very beginning, I started volleyball in like the end of seventh grade, beginning of eighth grade. I had just finished like playing soccer. I played soccer for like 5 years, not like competitively to say that I was good or anything,
Sure.
but I was like all about soccer and yada, yada, yada. And my mom, she had wanted me to like try something new because she played a bunch of different sports when she was younger. She wanted me to like try softball and all these other stuff, but then she brought up volleyball and she put us in like me and my sister in some like rec team, and at first I was like, I do not want to play volleyball. Like I want to stick to soccer. I think I'm gonna go big with soccer. But I'm glad I did it because I just loved it. Like it was fun. I kind of like was good at it, so I enjoyed it right off the bat, and then it kind of
Pretty good
just
at it.
yeah built off from there. And then I found out about like I went from like rec teams to there's school teams, and now there's club teams, and it kind of just built off of that. And then my passion just grew for it more over the years.
Terrific. Elena, I want to make sure we give you plenty of opportunities to ask Saane some questions. Do you have some for her?
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. I think I'll definitely have more questions as we go. But overall, I just loved hearing how you were a soccer player. I mean, myself growing up in Brazil, we were around soccer all the time. So maybe tell us, what you enjoyed so much about soccer. Because, I mean, it's totally different from volleyball. You have more contact, you have more running. So maybe tell us a little bit of how that, impacted you growing up.
That's a good question. I started when I was a lot younger, so it was kind of just like, or even like back in recess days, like all of us kids would just like go play soccer, and it was fun. And obviously, when I was younger, I don't know why I enjoyed running, but I liked running, and it was fun to kind of get physical with girls and be aggressive and do that kind of thing. And I don't know, I just enjoyed it. I guess just being in a sport in general was something I enjoyed, and it helps when you feel confident and able in your sport. So I guess that's why I enjoyed soccer a lot.
Yeah, totally. Makes perfect sense.
So Saane, like you said, ended up picking volleyball because you enjoyed playing it. Played at the high school level at Woods Cross High. Actually played as an outside, so a little bit of a change for you moving to middle now at Weber State. But I just kind of wanted to go through some of your stats. 2.4 aces per set as a senior. I think that's actually career. I think I did this career. Yeah, this is career. 2.4 kills a set, 2.3 blocks a set. Wow, these are pretty consistent numbers and a 252 hit percentage. Kind of want to talk a little bit about translating the game now up to the D1 level, because playing high school volleyball is one thing, playing D1 volleyball is a different thing. And so talk to us a little bit about how you feel that your skills have translated now that you've played 4 D1 matches.
Cool. Yeah. So I definitely would say everything's a lot more competitive and held to a higher standard, especially being in like Maya's gym. Like he holds us to kind of a different standard than like high school. I feel like his expectations of how we do things, like, and they're very specific, like how like my steps are when I block, or the zones that I run when I go up to hit. It's very specific. He's very clear, and everyone's on the same page, and he lays it out for us, and like we all agree to it, so we're all on the same page. I think that's a big difference coming from high school. There's different commitment levels within like different girls, so that could affect the team as a whole. But playing D1 and being in Maya's gym, it's definitely nice to have us all on the same page. We're all like skill wise, we're all very capable to do the things that he's asked us to do and laid out for us to do. So that's just what I would say about it.
Yeah, I mean, you've been part of a star-studded class, probably, I think, arguably one of the best classes recruiting in Weber State history. We talked a lot about that. When a lot of you signed, we were able to interview some of your teammates, talk to Brielle Rickard. I don't think we talked to Rose, but yeah, I mean, when some of you all, everybody was really excited to see this group come in, because the talent level is, I mean, you already paying dividends, right? You guys have had an opportunity to play early in the career, and I think it's really gonna really work out. But Elena, do you have another question for Saane?
Sure, I'll jump in right here and go off of what you're talking about, your high school experience. I think I would love to hear a little bit more. I hear you saying, that the attention to detail is so big in Maya's gym, Maya, Matt, and Sammy's. And I would love to know if that's the main difference that you see, coming from the Woods Cross Wildcats and then changing to the Weber State Wildcats. If the attention to detail is the thing that stood out to you the most, or if there's a specific point, like a skill, it could be like how you notice that the girls hit much harder, or that they're overall more athletic. I don't know, just shooting some ideas out there. But the thing that stood out to you the most when you started practicing with this team.
Yeah, the thing that stood out to me the most is definitely the attention to detail. Like, I feel like in high school ball, they don't break it down as far as they've broken it down for us freshmen here, now that we are here at Weber. Like, and even film, like, we would watch film in high school, but it wouldn't be like as specific, the things that they tell us. Like, it's literally down to like each step. I don't know how to explain it, but like it's very specific, very purposeful, and everything that we do has purpose to it. And like the practices that MIS holds, everything is purposeful. I feel like in high school there were definitely more days um, like where everyone's kind of just going through the motions, trying to get through the 2.5 hour practice, just kind of mindlessly going through it. But like up here, it's different. You have to give like your 100% physical, mental, emotional effort every single practice. And it's not only just like so that you get validation from the coaches, but it's just because you're trying to build something with the girls and like your teammates. And the attention to detail helps with that, and it helps keep us all on the same page and all consistent upward slopes, because we're definitely not where we need to be, both like as like myself as an individual and as a team. But that's what's going to help us get there, is just being very purposeful and attentive to the details.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And actually, for our listeners, to clarify what you said, it is at a different level of attention to detail, to the point where this step makes a difference. If you're moving to your left, if you're going to start with your left foot, or if you're going to start with your right foot, that's something that we actually talk about in our gym. So, wanted to clarify how Saane was not exaggerating at all. And it's really awesome to see those things starting to make sense as they explain to us and we make those changes and see the results that come from it. So I think you made a great point there. Thank you.
Of course.
So, Sane, you've very recently gone through the recruiting process, and I'm always fascinated by it. Whether that's softball, volleyball. We've talked to a few basketball recruits, and of course football. Talk to us a little bit about your recruiting journey. I mean, what we hear over and over again from recruits is the fact that it's all about relationships. That the coaching staff always seem to build the relationship with the player, and that relationship is often a deciding factor for them choosing Weber State over some other, sometimes more flashier offers. So I was kind of hoping you might share a little bit about your journey. How did you get on Weber State's radar, and kind of talk to us about building a relationship with the coaching staff, and then ultimately the thing that you just made you decide to become a Weber State Wildcat after playing for Woods Cross.
Definitely. So I 100% agree. Like it, and it was kind of not to like follow the crowd or anything, but it was definitely the same for me. Like the reason I chose to come here was because I felt like Maya, and at the time we had Kayla, so that's who I would talk to during my recruiting process, and Matt. Like they took the time to kind of show more than just interest in me as a volleyball player, but like trying to get to know me as a person. And I also, something that I really liked was they were super clear and super blunt about how they run things in their gym, the expectations that the girls are held to, and like what they expect from being a player at Weber State. So that was definitely something I liked, how honest they were. And it kind of like took the jitters of being on like a call away, just because like there's nothing really to be nervous about because they're telling you everything up front. So kind of liked that. And definitely I feel like they emphasize when, because during recruiting I would talk to like hop on a Zoom with the girls themselves, and they would just kind of give me the layout of like how things are here, and they were super honest. And one thing that they would emphasize is how they truly do care about us, like as women off the court, not just like a player that they can just use for their abilities and not really care about them as a person. So that was something that I liked, because I feel like as you go into higher level sports, that aspect can be lost fast, especially from like a coach and player relationship. So I really liked how they all, and it was consistent too. Like every one of the girls were saying the same thing. Like they care about you, and like they will push you to your hardest and like make you do things that you don't think you can do and push you to do hard things. But like at the end of every day, like there's no doubt in your mind that they care. And that's something that was a huge factor for me in choosing to come here to Weber State.
Yeah, when I moved to Tennessee, I started to really admire Pat Summitt, who was a longtime head basketball coach at the University of Tennessee. And there's an ESPN 30 for 30 about her. And in that 30 for 30, they talk about the fact that players that stayed in Pat Summitt's program for the 4 years always graduated, that she cared so much about them off the court. Of course, they were playing at the highest levels. They won national championships, all of that stuff. But, she cared about them, and that's what kept so many players in the program. And in Knoxville was that Pat Summitt really cared. And so it sounds like it's a really similar environment in Maya's gym and at Weber State, which is nice.
Yeah, for sure.
Elena, do you have another question for Saane?
Oh, wow. No, I think she said it all. The transparency throughout the entire recruiting process and the fact that the entire coaching staff cares about us as people. I think that says a lot about the culture of the program. And that's something that's been like this since Maya took over. So I think she explained that perfectly.
I especially like what you said. We hadn't heard that well. I guess we sort of knew that, you talk to other players as well that are already in the program. Like we've seen that with some of the football players that we've interviewed, the recruits, where they say, yeah, I came and did my official visit, and I hung out with this guy for the weekend and, did that stuff. But I guess we had never heard anybody else really talk about that. Like nobody that we've talked about on the softball side has talked about that. So it makes total sense that it happens as well on the volleyball side, where it's like I've been in job interviews where it's like, yeah, they're going to hook you up with this person and you get to ask that person anything about working here and they're going to tell you what's up. And I always found those valuable because fit is super important, right? And it feels like the coaching staff at Weber State cares a lot about fit as well. Of course, they want to bring in players who are talented like yourself, but then also they're saying, hey, this is what it's like. Are you down with that? This is an environment where you can thrive? The answer is yes. After you've been told that 5 or 6 times, it's probably a good fit, right?
Yeah.
Saane, I wanted to ask you a little bit about this young season because, like we noted at the top, you are a freshman, which, by the way, congratulations on winning Defensive Player of the Week in your first week in the Big Sky Conference. Big deal.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah. But I think the thing that really surprised me and lots of other observers of the program is that you started all 3 games this weekend. And so I wanted to ask you a little bit about that because a freshman who gets the opportunity to start 3 games, that's big. And I think that says a lot about your preparation as a player coming into it. So I wanted to see, talk to us about your process and how you prepare and how that has sort of served you already in this young season to be able to not only start, but had a good weekend because you won the conference Defensive Player of the Week.
For sure. So, I would say my preparation is honestly in practice. Us girls, we push each other hard, and in our gym we say that the starting side, because as we get closer to games and stuff, it'll be the starters versus everyone else. You know what I mean? And in our gym we say it's the starters versus the second best team in the conference. So it's our team is pushing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know if I was confusing or not, but I think it's definitely in practice. And just, I know you were talking about being a starter and getting Defensive Player of the Week or whatever and all that, but I feel for me it's just more focused on the tasks I'm given to practice and focusing on those things. And we're taught that the outcomes will take care of themselves as long as you focus on the process itself. So that's something that I definitely tried to buy into the most because, it seems like it's working and I see the value in it, and that's what we're trying to work towards as a team. So I guess my preparation is just going hard in practice and focusing on the tasks each day, whether it be this day I'm focusing on more on my blocking or my hitting or exploding out of my stance or things like that. So yeah, I think just not getting caught up in the outcomes, but just focusing on the process that the coaches lay out for you.
Yeah, we've heard Maya say that before, and we've done a bunch of interviews with him. He always says, take care of things on your side of the net, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Whatever happens, happens. But if you do the process that we prepare for on your side of the net, should be good on the other side. Take care of itself.
Exactly.
It's about the little things, right? How many times do you hear Maya say that?
Literally every day. It's so true. So Yeah.
Absolutely.
Elena, one last opportunity to ask a question to Saane before we wrap up here.
You know, I'm not super ready to move on from that last question. I really liked you asking about the preparation and Sani talking about how practices go. I think I wanted to dive a little bit deeper on the technical side of it because from the moment that you reported in August, as a freshman, in my case, as a newcomer transferring as a junior, there were the technical things that the coaches wanted me to adjust before we started playing. And I wanted to know if, like, off the top of your head, you have something, whether it's like related to hitting or that first step on your blocking approach, if you have something that you really focused on, that you were working on deliberately during practice, that you think maybe helped you earn that starting spot this weekend.
Definitely. I would have to say blocking.
Mhm.
I feel like in club and high school, at least from my experience, they don't go as in depth to teach you like the technique of blocking. I feel like high school and club level, up until that point, it's all just about all you hear is like press, 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 which is true. It's obviously a part of like blocking. But
Yeah.
when I came here, it's like your steps and how low you are and like jabbing instead of like it's all the way down to like not turning your foot. You just jab and then you take a huge second step and things like that. So that was probably the biggest um, or even hardest you could say adjust for me is like learning how to block, like actually block and efficiently the way they want me to. So there was that. What was the other part of your question? Sorry.
No, that was exactly it. Just, the technical adjustments, and I loved what you said about, we hear so much press because we really do, but there's so much that goes into it before you
Yeah.
actually go over the net to press. So I loved your answer. That was great.
Yeah.
Saane, last question from me, and then we'll let you get on with your night. We talked a little bit before we came on the show about the fact that you also, not in addition to playing prep volleyball in Utah, you also played some club. A number of the recruits who have come in this season have playing club is very, very common. And so I kind of want to ask you a little bit about the club scene because it's not something I think we've talked about a lot on this show. How is Utah's club scene? Is it one that is competitive in terms of like national ranking? Like how does Utah compare to other places where volleyball is the thing and everybody's playing volleyball? Like talk to us a little bit about the club scene in the 801.
Yeah, definitely. I think Utah wise, playing club is definitely like the smartest way to go if you want to get better faster. Not that high school isn't in that scene, but it's just kind of different because club you're placed with like similar skill level, while high school it's kind of like whoever's in your boundaries is just in your boundaries. You know what I mean? So it's not really based on skill, I guess, in that aspect. Um, National ranking wise, I would say it's definitely Utah's growing in the national ranking wise. I'm from Club V, and a lot of our teams like do rank nationally, but that definitely wasn't how it was before. I'm pretty sure a couple years back, like Utah is not really like taken as seriously when going to like out of state tournaments and stuff like that. But I think over the years, like as teams have gotten better and like different coaching techniques have improved over the years, like teams have climbed up the ranks. Obviously, like states where it's like Texas and California and um, like Kansas City, where volleyball is huge. Like there's some gnarly teams within the club like scene. I think that's probably the value in playing club is that the competition that you find in club you will not find in high school. Like you play some crazy teams and like you see things that you don't see in high school and then you learn from it and then you can build on top of your game with the knowledge that you now have. So yeah, I guess that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah. So you'd played for Club V. I mean, I think a number of your teammates also played on that same squad, right?
Yeah. So there's 5 of us freshmen and all 5 of us played at Club B.
Yeah, because I was gonna say I think Brielle played, Jada played, Ashley
hmm
played, you played. Did Rose play as well?
hmm
As
So
a
Rose and Ash were on the same team, and then me, Jada, and Brio were on the same team this last club season.
yeah, impressive.
That's awesome.
Well, Saane, wanted to thank you so much for taking some time to chat with us here on Weber State Weekly. we noted that you guys are going to be hitting the road this week. Going to be taking the trip down to UNLV, which, by the way, if you guys didn't know, UNLV were the winners of the NIVC last season. That is the tournament that the Wildcats ultimately fell in to UTEP, which was a crazy match that the Wildcats did not win in 5, which is a huge bummer. But UNLV mowed through UTEP, so that tells you the quality of that squad last season. So it's going to be quite a challenge down in Vegas this weekend for you all. But we wish you the best of luck because,
Thank
like
you.
you said, iron sharpens iron, man. You guys, you're gonna eat it up. You're gonna love it.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Best of luck to you and travel safely. We'll see you back in the Club Swenson real soon.
Of course. Thank you.
So,
All
safe
right,
travels, Saane. Awesome chatting with you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
All right. I want to thank Saane Katoa so much for taking some time to chat with us again. Like we said, it's good to get the freshmen on here to talk, kind of the new faces of the program with so many folks leaving. Had kind of, I feel like it's opposite ends, Elena, a little bit, right? Like we talked to Emma Mangum last week, kind of a leadership presence for this team as a senior. Had a big weekend herself, but then the opposite side of that, bringing in some freshmen, talk a little bit about their experience coming in. So both sides of the spectrum for the Wildcat program so far on this young season.
Absolutely. It's awesome for us to start our season here in the podcast having a little bit the best of both worlds, and it's just so great to see how both levels are with the same mentality. Saane, I mean, they recorded in the beginning of August and you can just hear in her voice how she's ready for that competition. She's ready to grow and to get into practice and give 100% that she has mentally, physically, emotionally every day. So that makes me super excited about this season. I mean, they're just getting started.
Yeah. And I mean, we talked about this last week about how the schedule kind of ramps up to some really tough opponents leading into the conference tournament. And so the way that things have started, obviously we'll see how things go. There'll be some tough matches this weekend against some good squads, but a good learning experience, I think, for even if they come back 3-3, those aren't bad L's. You know what I mean? Like with as young as this team is, go and play some good squads, man. Go see what it takes, because I think it'll do some good.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's about getting better. It's about competing. It's about seeing teams that we don't see often in the Big Sky Conference. It's about getting that exposure to other conferences. Seeing people, I mean, in the ACC and seeing how they are going to match our volleyball level. So, I think it's super exciting. And I mean, as long as we keep our focus, we will know that this is a preparation for our conference schedule. So yes, we obviously want to win. We obviously want to compete at a high level, but it's about how much we are growing in these matches leading up to the conference schedule when it gets real, more real, I should say.
Yeah, because it'll get very, very real.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about last week, Elena, because you had, not only did you have the chance to watch, you got to watch from the floor, man. So it was a pretty good opportunity.
Goodness. If you think the end of the third set was, already electrifying just watching on the screen, I can relate to how you feel because last year I lived in Texas for a year and I was watching them from my living room and would already get nervous. But then to be able to sit right behind the court this past weekend, wow, it's a different atmosphere. The Swenson gets lit, and you can see how that really gets the girls to come in clutch in the moments that they need the most. So it was a great weekend for the Wildcats.
Yeah, did they ever? I mean, guys, if you're not getting to Club Swenson for these matches, you are missing out because it's a fun environment. But let's go through. I mean, so like we said at the top, the Wildcats faced UC Riverside Highlanders, hated rival SUU, and San Jose State, which was quite a match in itself. Go watch the replay on ESPN Plus, folks. It's a good time. But one trend that I kind of noted throughout each of those was that the Wildcats always seemed to start off a little bit shaky, and then they would get their feet under them and, kind of figure it out. Like that San Jose State match, it was like, oh, man, are we going to be able to really hang? Like, have they met their match? Is this going to be? But every time they would sort of answer back in the second set. It's like, all right, let's get things together and they'd figure it out. And so I wanted to see what you thought, Elena. Did you feel that was like freshman nerves? The team just kind of just gelling, or is it something you think that could kind of continue all year because it is a learning process?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think that the freshman nerves have a little bit to do with that. We could see it, from the very first match, even though they got the sweep at the end, the beginning up to like the sixth point, I believe it was very close. There is the jitters of the first game at home.
Yeah.
I mean, we're hosting a tournament, and it's the first time that we are competing, knowing that it counts for our record, and it feels different, even though practices are so very competitive. Once you get to put on a jersey and the crowd is there, and you know that this is the beginning of the season, then I think it's very much normal to have those jitters in the beginning of the games. I don't think that that's something that will keep going as the season goes, but I also think that it's a very natural thing. I mean, it's the moment that first the girls, Weber State, they're adapting to the team that they're playing, getting the feel for the match, getting to actually experience what had been said in the scouting reports and in film. So I think it is very normal, but I also think that that's something that gets worked through. The fact that the practices are so competitive, like Saane told us, we get to practice in the Swenson, which a good amount of teams that Weber plays against does not practice in the same gym that they play. So I think that's already an advantage for that team. And just the level of competition during practice. As the season develops a little bit more, that's something that will naturally wear out, and they'll be able to come out even stronger in the beginning.
That's an interesting fact, like you said, that a lot of teams in the conference and in other places, they don't actually practice on the floor that they play on. The Swenson is pretty much a dedicated facility for volleyball. We've seen some practice for basketball in there as well. I mean, if you've been in the Swenson, you know that there are hoops there. But by and large, Club Swenson is for volleyball. And so they have the advantage of constantly being in there, working in that gym, getting very comfortable with being in that setting. Then just add fans, and it's a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the first time that all of these newcomers, not only the freshmen, but also we had one transfer, they were playing in the Swenson. So there's a lot of adaptation that needs to happen. There's a lot of new pieces coming in and a new reality for the girls that were coming in from a high school setting. So I think that is very natural. And overall, they performed really well, given, considering how big of a change that was for their volleyball reality.
Yeah, I mean, there were some big moments where, like think about this for the San Jose State match. Ashley Nining is the one that comes through with the final kill to
Yes.
win the thing. You know what I mean? As a freshman playing outside, like it was just like, man, incredible. Just
Yeah,
big opportunities for the freshmen this weekend.
for sure.
So another stat with the UC Riverside match that kind of stuck out to me, and I wanted to get your thoughts on the squad as a whole. Weber held Riverside, the Highlanders, to a .059 hit percentage for the match. Defense was big in that
Oh
set,
yeah.
or in that entire match, and so I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on. Do you think that defense will kind of be a calling card for this team, that like they will really be built around the defense, or is it like, well, it's more of a balancing act because, of course, the offense can be very, very potent. Hashtag A State, of course. They can always get it done from the serving line. One of the best in the country at that. Do you feel like defense will definitely be the thing that kind of leads and anchors them, or is it more a balanced approach and it just so happened to be that way for that particular game?
We definitely have to recognize that Weber State is a great defensive team. I mean, look at our blocking stats, look at our defense players. We overall have really good defenders, and they're scrappy players. I mean, the image that comes to my head immediately is Kate Stanford, the setter, who was actually named the MVP of the tournament,
Was.
just, laying it all out, running over the scoring table to go get balls, and, nothing was too far for her. And I think that mentality, especially coming from Kate as a leader, being the center of the team, really shows you how much the team has that heart that it takes to play defense. I mean, we can talk about Kate all day, talk about how much she shows that she's worked so hard to be in that position of being a starter. I mean, she arrived at Weber in 2019 while I was about to start my senior year. And from there, it was a whole lot of learning, a whole lot of, not actively being on the court, but like Saane mentioned, being the second team who was making our starters better. So you could really see that hunger whenever she got to go on the court and show that she's been waiting for that opportunity for so long. So she showed heart in the way that she was setting the ball in her defense. I mean, getting blocks, getting amazing digs, aces. So I think that that is a really good example of of the character of the defensive system of the Weber State team. Overall, I do think it's a balance, but man, that defense has got a lot of potential.
Yeah, I mean, there were times last season where the front really struggled, that the block, wasn't there at times, and so it was just sort of like it was just a race, because Wildcats didn't lose a lot of games last season, but there were times where
Mhm.
there were struggles because the block was struggling that night or whatever. I don't think that's going to happen with this squad. I mean, it feels like there is some learning to be had, right?
Yeah.
Young players. There is a little bit of experience to as well on the bench, but yeah, I think that so far from what we've seen, this is a team that will take care of teams that they should, and that they'll be competitive against teams that maybe have written them off. Be like, nah, I don't think so.
Yeah,
No, I think they'll be there.
absolutely. And it's a good combination of how, our front row and our back row work together. We have our big girls very disciplined and executing the game plan and listening to what the coaches have to say, whether it's adapting in the middle of the game or just through the scouting report in preparation to the match. And they're getting those touches, not necessarily those stuff blocks, but the touches that make it easier for the girls in the back row to position and to get a quality dig that leaves Kate and Rose in a position to deal the ball and run our offense, in a stellar way. So I think our defense is, I mean, as a former defensive player, obviously I'm a little bit biased to be more excited about our defense, but I think we look really good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one more thought in that vein. Since we just talked to
Mhm.
Sane, a thing that stood out to me as well was that she had, was it 11 was it 11 blocks in one game? I think it was the SUU match. I have to go back and check. But she had 11 blocks in one game, and I think it was the SUU match. And I wanted to kind of ask you, like, so we talked about the fact that she won Defensive Player of the Week,
Yeah.
right out of the gate as a freshman, like super cool for her to do that. But do you think that that was probably the performance that kind of sealed the deal for her to say, like, yep, this is it. She's winning Defensive Player of the Week. Yeah, it was the SUU game. 11 blocks in that game, whether that was assisted or solo. And so, do you feel that was kind of the performance that was like, yep, she's Defensive Player of the Week in the conference? Like, that's what it is. Because there were some good matches that happened. Northern Colorado
Oh, yeah.
played, the University of North Carolina. They're playing
Mhm.
Colorado State tonight. Like, they've played some real teams too, but they gave it to Saane.
Yeah, I think that match was, it had a lot of weight, on that final decision. But overall, I like how she started from the very first match against the Highlanders. Very consistent. She set the tone for the weekend. She made sure that everyone, knew that she was there. I mean, she meant business, so it was more like, hey, watch out, we're just getting started. So
Yeah.
the SUU performance was amazing, no doubt. But overall, I really liked her attitude throughout the whole weekend. Um, we had a couple of moments here and there, like in the beginning of the San Jose match, where she, I believe, had like a couple hitting errors in a row, straight out of the gate. And she stayed aggressive through that.
Yeah.
She kept her posture. She didn't let that, throw her game off at all. And I think that mentality, not only the blocks and the swings, like we had one reader here engage and say how he took ibuprofen just thinking about the girls that were digging the balls, and I mean
Yeah, it was
great
bad.
input there because it her performance was amazing overall. But I really liked her attitude. You saw her playing and saw that calm, that steadiness mixed with how aggressive she was blocking and hitting. I mean, it didn't look like it was a freshman playing. So
No,
you
I
know
agree.
so I think it was a combination of factors that made her really earn that award. It was well deserved.
Yeah, I mean, and when they would run it through the middle and they would set her up, I mean, those kills were like they were going, and it felt like San Jose State started to figure that out a little bit in the third and fourth sets, right? Because she had sent so many to the floor with such
Yeah.
authority that they were like, we got to do something about that, man. And so they started to figure it out. But like you said, she kept her head up, just kept going, kept taking what, Kate would set up for her and just
Yeah,
kept sending it. And she had success.
absolutely. She worked out really well.
Um, so we've talked a lot about the defense. We've talked a lot
Mhm.
about Saane tonight, but I don't want us to forget about Danny Richens because Danny. So the San Jose State match was an interesting one, especially for the outsides, because I felt like we had two, maybe three really good outside performances on both sides of the net. So of course, Danny Richens tied a career high in kills, which I believe was 24 in that match, which is saying something against an opponent like San Jose State. But on the other side of the net, Blair Fleming had, she willed her team back into it in that fourth set because it looked like the Wildcats were going to run away with it and just that was it, that it was over. Fleming had, I think, like a personal 4-0 run or something like that going into it. It was
Wow.
just like, oh my gosh, like she is like just carrying this team right now. And so it was like, wow. I mean, respect to, to Blair Fleming and San Jose State, even though, Wildcats are struggling to block her. What do you feel though was, I mean, the Wildcats ended up, winning the day and getting that set and, getting out of the gym. What do you think was the key to getting around the SJSU front? Because the Wildcats did drop the first set, 25-19, didn't go the way that they had hoped. And so they immediately adjusted, found the offense, got it rolling, and it paid dividends, especially in that third set. What was the key to getting around the San Jose State front?
Ooh, okay, that's a good one. I think we have a couple different answers that really helped Weber find that success after the first set. The first thing that comes to my mind is just the capacity to adapt. So, we started and right off the gate, we could see that San Jose's block was set. They got a couple blocks, right from the beginning. So we're like, okay, what is at the end of that first set? It's a matter of looking back and seeing what's working and what's not working, and in what moments was the team the most vulnerable. And you can really see the adaptation in the following sets. In the beginning of the match, you could see a lot of the middles running that slide where they come, almost hitting from the right side of the court behind the setter. And that's when I felt like SJSU had the block well set up. And then afterwards, the middles were in front of the setter on that quick set, stacking up with Danny hitting from the back row. And that really threw their block off. I mean,
Yeah.
it didn't matter if Kate was setting the middle or the middle back row. We were still finding a lot of success there. So being able to recognize that the initial tactic wasn't working, we weren't successful after the end of the first set, and adapting was a huge point for me.
And
But
that's something that happened last year too, right? That they had a
yeah,
lot of success out of the back row, especially when Rylan Adams was back there. There were a
oh
lot
yeah,
of times where she would send it from the back row and she'd find the floor, most times instead of not.
absolutely. I mean, we know that it's a powerful weapon, and um, the team found a lot of success there. But besides that, I thought, again, the attitude, staying composed, staying aggressive, the fact that their block was high and strong and got Weber a couple times, and that didn't change the posture and the attitude of the hitters. That's how you know that they were instilling that confidence in one another. And it's good to see, that the team is able to make those mistakes and come out still with a really good attitude about them, and not let that shake their confidence, especially with the freshmen coming in. I think it's easy to let that get to you, and they showed a lot of maturity and handled it really well. And besides that, I think the serve receive battle played a huge role there. I think, comparing the San Jose game with the SUU game, I think we were passed better from the very beginning. They were more stable in that pass, even through the hitting errors. I mean, I don't have any numbers in my head right now to talk about passing, but that's just, from a viewer's perspective, that's the impression that I got. So, maintaining that serve very aggressive and keeping San Jose out of system at times made their very fast offense a little bit more predictable. because you could see how, their sets are so shooty, or so low and quick, and that can throw off our blockers at first. But once they don't have the perfect pass, then the sets become a little bit more predictable. We can slow down their game a little bit more, and then finally stop at the end when we found success and won the match.
Yeah, it also felt like there were times where, and this is just a function of what the Spartans were doing. They would maybe the Wildcats would have a blocking error, or attacking error, something like that. So then the Spartans get the ball, and then they would immediately give it back on a service error. Like, it felt
Yes.
like they killed their own momentum a lot of times. And when that would happen, the Wildcats would take advantage, and if they were down, they would claw back a couple of points to dig into that lead when they were given the opportunity to take advantage of those errors. Or if they were ahead, they would then build on it a couple more points to kind of like spread that out, because there were a lot of times where these sets were really, really close, and then there were just critical junctures where those kinds of errors would happen, and the gap would widen because the Wildcats would take advantage of the errors that were given them. I think it just speaks to the resilience and the grit teams that they have early in the season.
Absolutely. And during practices in the Swenson gym, you hear so much about winning the serve receive battle. So being able to really capitalize, when the other team misses a serve, making sure that the girls continue to serve aggressively, and reducing those errors as much as possible, while still forcing a bad pass from the opponent. That makes a huge difference, and I think that that's a point where we found a lot of success.
Yeah, I mean, because if you're getting them off their game, they're gonna struggle to run their offense, which is fine with us.
We're cool with that.
Yeah, obviously we are. Last thing, and then we can wrap up this conversation, is we've talked a little bit about it already, but the impact of the freshmen. We talked about the fact that the San Jose State match ended with an Ashley Knighting, kill to tie it up, or to put a bow on it, and give the Wildcats the dub. We talked about the impact of Saane Katoa at ad nauseum tonight. We've talked a lot about that. But we also talked about the fact that Brielle Rickard, who was a high school All-American, honorable mention, also got some opportunity to play. All kind of having their chances in big matches to show up and be a part of it. And so I wanted to ask you, do you expect to see Maya put his trust in the new recruits more and more as the season goes on? Because obviously there's a little bit of experience on the bench, but is it something that we're going to see a lot more of, that more and more Maya's going to say, yep, we're going to call up some of these freshmen and just give them chances to just send it and play?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think so. For many reasons, actually. The first one being that if Jeremiah and Matt and Sammy recruited these freshmen and newcomers, it's because they trust them. So they would not recruit girls who they don't think that can perform when needed, and that can really deliver when they get the chance to go on the court. So the fact that the coaching staff believes in these freshmen and newcomers, it just shows how much they will be able to perform once they're given that chance. So for sure, I do think that they will be seeing a lot of the court, and a lot of it is also because Weber finds strength in the depth of the team. So you could see, throughout the weekend how there were different formations that were tested. I mean, we got to give a shout out to Charlie Bouquet, who started as a libero. I mean, also, coming in after her redshirt season and being able to have that experience out there. I mean, the libero jersey, it has a weight to it, I mean, it fits heavy. It's a lot of responsibility, especially knowing how much Jeremiah expects from his passers and defenders overall. So the fact that he was able to try these different formations, both Charlie and Michaela playing libero, and have them all deliver, in their very first experience playing with that team, I think that says a lot about the team. And I mean, throughout the matches, we had other changes too on that San Jose match when Bailey initially started, but then throughout the match, he brought in Brielle, and she came in and she took care of the job. She did great. So the fact that you know, the coaches know that they can use these pieces. A lot of it comes from the competitive practices, like Saane talked about, like we will probably talk about so much throughout this season. It's that preparation. So knowing that both teams, starters, non-starters, are giving their all, that means that they will be ready for whenever the chance presents itself. So the fact that they see practices in such a serious way really shows that they will be ready. So I can see a lot of freshmen seeing a lot of the court this season, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, a unique opportunity for them, right? With so many seniors leaving the program, certain key positions need to be filled. We talked about, Saane being moved from an outside hitter in prep now to a middle blocker.
Yeah.
Just that kind of stuff. It's like you have this opportunity because of the current state of the team to have those chances and those touches because you're going to be here. And so take advantage of them. And it seems like the freshmen are doing that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I think the expectation was set really clearly when these girls were recruited. They knew they had big shoes to fill. And I think that really sparked even more of a drive to give their all in practice to earn those spots. And you can see it paying off because they're coming in and they're delivering.
Yeah, already. So let's take a quick look at the upcoming schedule. We noted in the previous set that Wildcats will be taking the trip down to UNLV. UNLV is hosting their own tournament this weekend down in Las Vegas. So on Thursday, September 1st, Wildcats will be facing the Rebels at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'm told that will be streamed on Mountain West Network. My understanding is you can watch that online. I don't know that you can stream it on your Roku or anything like that, but you can definitely watch it on your laptop or on your phone. But then the next two matches, according to what I've been told, will not be streamed. And so Friday, September 2nd, the Wildcats will face St. John's at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And then Saturday, September 3rd, we'll be facing the University of Miami. This is Miami, Florida, Coral Gables, at 4 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. That's going to be an interesting matchup as well. Then a little bit of a break. Then the next weekend comes. Wildcats hit the road again, this time going to Southern California. A little bit of it's like a dual site tournament in a way. UC Irvine is hosting and also Cal State Fullerton. So if you're a softball fan, you know about those two locales very well. But on Thursday, September 8th, the Wildcats will take on the Anteaters, UC Irvine, in their place at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. No information on streaming that on that yet, but we will update you next week as we get more information. Then Friday, September 9th versus Gonzaga, also in Irvine. That match will be at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And then Saturday, September 10th, they'll take the trip up to Fullerton to play Cal State, 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on Saturday. So as soon as we get more information on streaming, we'll, of course, let you Wildcat fans know. But should know more in the next week on whether or not we'll be able to get a glimpse of any of those matches. So we'll wrap up the show.
Which I hope we do.
Yeah, obviously, we want to watch, right? It's been super fun, and we had the advantage of hosting last weekend's tournament. So of all the matches that got played, ours definitely got on ESPN Plus, which was nice because we got our first look. If you couldn't make it to Swenson like me, I mean, if you could, just go there. It's a good time.
Oh yeah, and it's a total different environment. It feels great to watch volleyball from there.
So email us, WeberStateWeekly@gmail.com, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon. And of course, the blog, WeberStateWeekly.com. I don't have anything planned for the blog quite yet, but I do need to make a content plan. So we'll try and get something up soon. Trying to do more video instead of writing. I don't know. You guys can let us know what you think. If you want to read more stuff or if you just want to watch a video, you can let us know. Elena, appreciate you coming on again tonight and talking some volleyball. Always appreciate your insights. As a former player who has played for Maya in the Swenson and had the experience on the floor, and just somebody who knows the game better than any of us. So appreciate you.
It is my pleasure. Great talking to you. Great hearing from Saane. Lovely being here.
Yeah. So we'll wrap up the show just like we always do. Weber State.
Great.
Great. Go Wildcats.